Long before Tenochtitlan rose as the magnificent capital of the Aztec Empire, the Aztec people were said to have originated from a mysterious land known as Aztlan. This legendary city is described in ancient codices as a place of lakes, lush landscapes, and thriving communities, often depicted as the cradle of Aztec culture and identity. While no physical ruins of Aztlan have been conclusively discovered, oral traditions, historical accounts, and archaeological clues suggest it may have existed somewhere in northern Mexico or the southwestern United States. Scholars debate its location, some proposing it was in the deserts of Nayarit or Sinaloa, while others argue that it was more symbolic, representing a mythological homeland rather than a tangible city. Despite the uncertainty, Aztlan remains a powerful cultural symbol, embodying the migration, survival, and identity of the Mexica people who would later establish Tenochtitlan on the swampy island in Lake Texcoco. Exploring Aztlan is not just about uncovering ruins, it is about tracing the roots of a civilization that shaped the history, religion, and art of Mesoamerica long before the rise of the famous Aztec capital. The mythical origins of Aztlan is considered the ancestral homeland of the Mexica, the people who later became the Aztecs. According to Aztec codices, the city was surrounded by lakes and abundant vegetation, offering fertile land for agriculture and thriving settlements. The name Aztlan roughly translates to place of herons, or land of whiteness, hinting at both the natural beauty and spiritual significance of the location. While some historians argue that Aztlan is purely mythical, it is clear that the stories served as a foundational origin myth for the Aztec identity. The codices describe the Mexica leaving Aztlan due to overpopulation, environmental changes, or divine instruction, beginning a long migration that ultimately led them to the Valley of Mexico. This journey shaped the Mexica's religious beliefs, military strategies, and social structure. Aztlan's legend served as a cultural anchor, reinforcing unity among dispersed communities and giving meaning to their eventual settlement in Tenochtitlan. Whether real or symbolic, Aztlan remains central to understanding how the Aztecs saw themselves, their origins, and their place in the world. Clues from codices and oral traditions. The existence of Aztlan is primarily known through codices, pictorial manuscripts created by the Aztecs and their predecessors. These documents depict a city surrounded by water, with temples, canals, and thriving populations, emphasizing the community's reliance on agriculture and trade. Oral traditions passed down through generations reinforce the story, describing migrations guided by a sacred leader or deity, often symbolized by the god Huitzilopochtli. Some codices show a group leaving Aztlan, carrying sacred objects, highlighting the spiritual significance of their journey. Archaeologists have tried to correlate these accounts with physical sites, but the lack of definitive ruins has left Aztlan's location speculative. Nonetheless, these codices and oral narratives provide invaluable insight into the cultural, religious, and political worldview of the Aztec people. They illustrate how origin myths can preserve collective memory and explain historical movements, even in the absence of concrete archaeological evidence. Studying these sources allows researchers to reconstruct the beliefs, values, and identity of the Mexica before they founded Tenochtitlan. Migration from Aztlan to the Valley of Mexico. According to Aztec tradition, the Mexica departed Aztlan in search of a new homeland, following divine guidance from Huitzilopochtli. This migration spanned decades and involved settling temporarily in various locations, often negotiating or fighting with other communities along the way. The journey shaped their social structures, military tactics, and religious practices as they adapted to new environments and forged alliances. The Mexica carried sacred objects, symbols, and rituals from Aztlan, embedding their cultural identity into every stage of the migration. This narrative explains how a small group of people from a distant, possibly lost city could eventually establish one of the most powerful empires in Mesoamerica. The migration also reinforced the importance of divine approval in Aztec culture, legitimizing their claims to land and authority in the Valley of Mexico. Understanding this journey highlights the deep connection between myth, history, and identity in the Aztec worldview, showing how legends like Aztlan influenced politics, religion, and social cohesion long before Tenochtitlan became a thriving metropolis. Possible locations of Aztlan. Scholars and historians have long debated the possible location of Aztlan. Proposed areas include regions in northern Mexico, such as Nayarit, Sinaloa, and Jalisco, as well as areas in the southwestern United States. Some researchers argue that Aztlan was a real settlement on the coast, while others suggest it was more symbolic, representing a shared ancestral homeland. Archaeological evidence supporting a specific location is limited, but clues such as ceramic styles, burial practices, and migratory patterns provide tantalizing hints. Environmental descriptions in codices, including rivers, lakes, and fertile valleys, help narrow potential areas, but none have been conclusively identified. Some historians believe the ambiguity is intentional, allowing Aztlan to function as both a historical origin and a cultural myth. Regardless of its exact location, Aztlan's story shaped Mexican identity, providing a sense of heritage and destiny that guided the people during their migration to the Valley of Mexico. Its legend remains one of the most enduring mysteries of pre-Columbian Mesoamerica. Religious significance of Aztlan. Aztlan was more than a city. It was a spiritual center that influenced the Mexica's religious practices. The Codices describe rituals, offerings, and divine guidance from Huitzilopochtli, emphasizing the connection between place, people, and deity. Leaving Aztlan was not just a migration, but a sacred journey ordained by divine instruction, shaping the Mexica's worldview and reinforcing the importance of religious observance. Sacred objects and symbols carried from Aztlan became central in ceremonies performed in new settlements, maintaining continuity with their ancestral homeland. The symbolism of water, lakes, and clouds surrounding the city may have represented fertility, life, and divine blessing, influencing agricultural and cosmological practices. Aztlan's spiritual significance persisted long after the Mexica settled in Tenochtitlan, as temples and rituals in the new capital referenced ancestral beliefs. Understanding Aztlan as a sacred origin highlights the role of mythology in governance, social cohesion, and cultural identity, showing how the Mexica combined history, religion, and legend to maintain unity and purpose. The architecture of Aztlan. What we can infer, though no definitive ruins of Aztlan have been found, descriptions in codices and historical accounts provide clues about its possible architecture. The city is depicted as having buildings made from local materials, including adobe, stone, and thatch, with communal spaces and ceremonial platforms. Canals, lakes, or water systems may have provided irrigation and transportation, similar to later Aztec innovations in Tenochtitlan. Defensive walls or natural barriers likely protected the city, reflecting the Mexica's early awareness of warfare and security. Circular or rectangular structures may have been used for religious rituals, storage, or governance, demonstrating multifunctional design. Archaeologists compare these descriptions to other pre-Aztec settlements in northern Mexico, noting similarities in layout, construction techniques, and communal planning. The inferred architecture suggests a society capable of organization, engineering, and cultural expression, laying the foundation for the sophisticated urban planning that would emerge in Tenochtitlan. Even without physical evidence, imagining Aztlan's structures provides insight into the creativity, resilience, and foresight of the Mexica people during their formative years. Aztlan and political organization. The people of Aztlan likely had a structured society with social hierarchies, leadership roles, and communal decision-making. Legends indicate the presence of leaders or priests who guided migrations, maintained rituals, and organized defense strategies. Clan structures may have determined land use, resource allocation, and ceremonial participation, reflecting early forms of governance. These organizational systems helped the Mexica adapt to environmental challenges, sustain large populations, and coordinate long migrations to new territories. The foundations of political authority established in Aztlan persisted in later Aztec society, influencing how rulers, councils, and priests governed Tenochtitlan. Understanding the political structures of Aztlan provides a glimpse into the social complexity and foresight of the Mexica, showing that their legendary homeland was not merely a mythical place, but a formative crucible for leadership, strategy, and social cohesion that shaped one of the most powerful empires in Mesoamerican history. Trade and daily life in Aztlan was likely centered around agriculture, craftsmanship, and trade. The fertile lands described in codices suggest cultivation of maize, beans, squash, and other staple crops, while fishing and hunting supplemented diets. Skilled artisans probably created pottery, textiles, and tools, forming the basis for local economy and trade with neighboring regions. Social activities, religious rituals, and communal gatherings would have structured daily life, fostering cohesion and cultural continuity. Trade networks may have extended across northern Mexico, allowing the exchange of resources, ideas, and techniques, which later influenced Tenochtitlan's economic and political development. Daily life in Aztlan was a blend of survival, creativity, and cultural expression, preparing the Mexica for the challenges and opportunities they would face during migration. Understanding these aspects highlights the sophistication of a society that, although lost, laid the foundations for one of the most influential civilizations in Mesoamerican history. Warfare and defense in Aztlan. Although Aztlan is often described in myth, evidence suggests the Mexica were aware of the need for defense and military organization even in their ancestral homeland. Codices and oral traditions imply that the city was fortified, possibly with natural barriers such as lakes, rivers, or hills, which protected it from neighboring rivals. Leaders and priests likely coordinated defense strategies, training young men in combat and ensuring that resources were sufficient to withstand sieges. Weapons, although not preserved, were probably similar to those later used by the Aztecs, including obsidian blades, spears, and shields. Military organization in Aztlan laid the groundwork for the disciplined warrior culture that would define the Mexica in Tenochtitlan. These early experiences in defense and strategy may have also influenced leadership structures, emphasizing authority, coordination, and the sacred justification of warfare under divine guidance. Understanding warfare in Aztlan provides insight into how a fledgling society could survive in a competitive environment, preparing the Mexica for the challenges of migration and eventual empire building. Agriculture and environmental adaptation. Agriculture in Aztlan was critical for sustaining its population and fostering societal growth. Codices suggest fertile land surrounded by lakes or rivers, ideal for cultivating maize, beans, squash, and other staple crops. The Mexica likely used early forms of irrigation to optimize water distribution, adapting their techniques to seasonal changes and local terrain. Agriculture was not only a matter of sustenance, but also a cultural and religious practice, with rituals linked to planting, harvest, and fertility deities. Environmental adaptation required ingenuity, as maintaining soil fertility, preventing flooding, and balancing communal land use would have been essential for survival. These strategies demonstrate an early understanding of ecology and resource management, which the Mexica carried with them during their migration to Tenochtitlan. Agriculture in Aztlan shows that even in a legendary city, survival, culture, and spirituality were intertwined, creating a foundation for the prosperity of one of Mesoamerica's most influential civilizations. Social hierarchy and leadership. Life in Aztlan was structured around social hierarchies, with leaders, priests, warriors, and artisans each fulfilling distinct roles. Codices depict priests guiding migration, performing rituals, and advising leaders, while warriors protected the city and ensured security. Artisans and farmers formed the backbone of the economy, providing essential goods and sustenance. This hierarchy allowed for efficient coordination of labor, defense, and ceremonial practices, reinforcing social cohesion. Leadership was often tied to divine guidance, with authority justified by the support of deities like Huitzilopochtli. These structures ensured that the community could function effectively during daily life and periods of migration. By analyzing social hierarchy in Aztlan, researchers gain insight into how the Mexica organized themselves, developed governance, and maintained cultural continuity. The foundations of authority, community roles, and religious leadership established in Aztlan would later shape the political and social systems of Tenochtitlan, highlighting the importance of this legendary homeland in Mexica history. Religion and mythology in Aztlan. Religion was central to life in Aztlan, influencing migration, governance, and daily activities. The Mexica worshipped deities such as Huitzilopochtli, Tlaloc, and Quetzalcoatl, integrating religious observance into agriculture, warfare, and social hierarchy. Codices describe rituals performed before leaving Aztlan, including offerings and ceremonies to secure divine favor for the journey ahead. Mythology provided moral guidance, cultural cohesion, and explanations for natural phenomena, reinforcing a collective identity among the community. Sacred objects and symbols were preserved and carried during migration, ensuring continuity of belief. The spiritual framework established in Aztlan persisted in Tenochtitlan, where temples, ceremonies, and codices reflected ancestral traditions. Religion and mythology in Aztlan exemplify how belief systems can guide societies, connect communities, and legitimize leadership, shaping both practical decisions and cultural identity for generations. Trade networks and economy. Trade likely played a key role in Aztlan, connecting the city with neighboring regions and enabling exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies. Archaeological studies of early Mexica migration suggest links with northern Mesoamerican societies, sharing pottery styles, textiles, and agricultural techniques. Trade would have provided access to valuable resources, including obsidian, jade, and salt, which were essential for daily life and ceremonial purposes. Markets or communal exchange points may have existed, facilitating both local and regional commerce. Economic organization in Aztlan would have reinforced social cohesion, supported leadership, and encouraged cultural innovation. Understanding trade networks highlights how even legendary cities operated within broader economic systems, allowing the Mexica to thrive and carry knowledge into their new settlements. Aztlan's economy set the stage for the sophisticated markets and tribute systems that would define the Aztec Empire. Migration routes and challenges. The Mexica migration from Aztlan to the Valley of Mexico spanned decades, encountering geographical, social, and environmental challenges. Groups traversed deserts, rivers, mountains, and unfamiliar territories while negotiating with existing populations. Resources were scarce, requiring careful planning and adaptation, including establishing temporary settlements and agricultural plots along the way. Leadership was critical to maintaining morale, coordinating movement, and securing divine guidance through ritual and prophecy. The challenges of migration forged resilience, adaptability, and strategic thinking, traits that would define Mexica's society. Each stop along the route contributed knowledge, alliances, and survival skills, ultimately enabling the establishment of Tenochtitlan. Understanding these challenges emphasizes the connection between the legendary city of Aztlan and the eventual success of the Mexica as a dominant civilization. Art, symbolism, and cultural expression. Although no direct artifacts from Aztlan have been confirmed, codices suggest a rich tradition of art and symbolism. Decorative motifs, ceremonial objects, and sacred symbols likely played roles in rituals, storytelling, and cultural identity. Artistic expression reinforced social hierarchy, conveyed religious beliefs, and preserved historical memory. Ceremonial objects, perhaps including masks, figurines, and textiles, would have symbolized authority, fertility, or divine protection. The focus on symbolic representation reflects the Mexica's understanding of the power of imagery in shaping community cohesion and transmitting cultural knowledge. These practices laid the foundation for the sophisticated art, architecture, and iconography that would flourish in Tenochtitlan. By studying codices and myths, scholars can infer the aesthetic and symbolic priorities of Aztlan, revealing a civilization that valued beauty, meaning, and continuity. Environmental adaptation and sustainability. Aztlan's inhabitants demonstrated remarkable adaptation to their environment, ensuring long-term sustainability despite potential challenges like climate fluctuations, water scarcity, or soil depletion. Agricultural techniques, water management, and settlement placement suggest advanced understanding of local ecosystems. Communities likely rotated crops, harvested resources carefully, and designed settlements to minimize environmental impact while maximizing productivity. These strategies allowed the Mexica to thrive in Aztlan, supporting growing populations and sustaining social complexity. Environmental adaptation not only ensured survival, but also shaped cultural practices, linking religious rituals to seasonal cycles, water management, and agricultural success. By studying these practices, researchers gain insight into how early Mesoamerican societies balanced human needs with ecological realities, laying the foundation for the sophisticated urban planning and agricultural ingenuity that would define Tenochtitlan. 17. Military traditions and training. Even in their legendary homeland, the Mexica likely emphasized military preparedness, shaping the warrior culture that would define later Aztec society. Young men may have been trained in combat skills, tactics, and strategy, learning to defend the city against potential rivals or raiders. Leaders and priests probably oversaw drills, ensuring that both physical prowess and spiritual discipline were cultivated. Weapons, such as obsidian blades, spears, and shields, would have been used for both defense and ritual purposes, highlighting the integration of warfare and culture. The organization of military forces in Aztlan would have also influenced social hierarchy, giving warriors status and authority within the community. These traditions provided the Mexica with resilience, coordination, and strategic insight, which became essential during their migration and eventual establishment of Tenochtitlan. Understanding military practices in Aztlan demonstrates that even a legendary city served as a formative ground for skills, leadership, and discipline that would sustain the Mexica in both survival and conquest. The role of women in Aztlan society. Women in Aztlan likely played essential roles in sustaining the community, managing households, agriculture, and craft production, while also participating in religious rituals. Codices suggest that women may have been responsible for weaving textiles, preparing food, and maintaining sacred objects, contributing directly to both economy and culture. They possibly held positions as priestesses or ritual assistants, ensuring that spiritual practices aligned with seasonal and migratory needs. The transmission of cultural knowledge, such as oral history, customs, and family traditions, would have primarily passed through women, preserving identity during the migration from Aztlan. Their contributions reinforced social cohesion, supported survival strategies, and maintained continuity of belief systems. Recognizing the roles of women in Aztlan highlights the collaborative nature of Mexica society. showing that leadership and cultural continuity were shared responsibilities, not solely the domain of warriors and priests. This understanding challenges modern assumptions about gender roles in early civilizations and underscores the indispensable influence of women in shaping the Mexica legacy. Sacred objects and cultural continuity. The Mexica carried sacred objects from Aztlan during their migration, ensuring continuity of belief and tradition. These items, which may have included ceremonial figurines, masks, or symbols of deities, reinforced spiritual guidance and cultural identity across generations. By preserving these objects, communities maintained a tangible link to their ancestral homeland, legitimizing leadership and rituals in new settlements. Sacred items also symbolized divine protection and approval, fostering morale and unity during the difficult journey. The transmission of these artifacts demonstrates the integration of religion, politics, and daily life, showing how mythology and tangible culture reinforced one another. Continuity of sacred objects ensured that, even in unfamiliar territories, the Mexica retained a sense of origin, purpose, and identity. Studying these objects and their significance provides insight into the ways early civilizations preserved memory, culture, and spiritual authority, bridging the gap between legend and the historical rise of Tenochtitlan. Urban planning and settlement patterns. Although Aztlan's precise location remains unknown, codices describe organized settlement patterns suggesting early forms of urban planning. Homes, communal areas, temples, and agricultural plots were likely arranged strategically to optimize defense, resource distribution, and social interaction. Access to water, fertile land, and trade routes would have influenced settlement layout, ensuring sustainability and efficiency. These patterns reflect foresight in resource management, social cohesion, and environmental adaptation. The principles observed in Aztlan may have directly influenced the meticulous urban planning of Tenochtitlan, with its canals, causeways, and district divisions. Understanding settlement organization in Aztlan highlights the Mexica's capacity for strategic thinking, long-term planning, and adaptation to environmental challenges. Even as a legendary city, Aztlan provides clues to the sophistication of pre-Aztec societies and their ability to balance communal needs, defense, and spiritual practices in urban design, laying a foundation for the remarkable city that would follow. Education and knowledge transmission. Education in Aztlan was likely informal but highly structured, focusing on survival skills, religious knowledge, and social responsibilities. Elders, priests, and experienced leaders passed down teachings orally, including agricultural techniques, navigation, warfare strategies, and spiritual practices. Children would learn by observing, participating in rituals, and assisting in daily work, ensuring that knowledge was practical and culturally embedded. Storytelling and myths reinforced moral lessons, social norms,